So hello everyone, welcome here to round number 2 of the 2018B NASA RallyCross Challenge season. We're at the Phoenix International Raceway in Avondale, Arizona. As it's Josh Mertz bringing you the call, as always, for the Automotive Sports Network today. Cars are in practice, getting their final preparations done after seating before the heat races here in Phoenix. It's a very interesting track here in Avondale, Arizona. So let's ride on board with Ray Kingsbury in the last lap Motorsports Ford Fiesta. Very tricky final sector. Have to snake your way through the dirt in the final chicane and onto the front straightaway. Past the start finish, onto the oval heading towards turn 2. Very hard corner to get right. You have to start braking at the first tire barrier, down to second gear. Right, left, rounding through the infield road course here. Jokers on the left. Very tricky corner to get right. You have to flick it back to the left. And don't miss the jump like Kingsbury's about to do in the Ford. Miss the tires on the left. Fourth gear down to third. Get the car to rotate back to fourth gear depending on what car you're in. Feather the throttle, sliding it through the dirt. Through the right-left chicane and back out onto the asphalt. That was a lap at Phoenix as we're getting ready for the first heat race. As the format has changed a little bit in the NASA RallyCross Challenge. We mentioned last week that the drivers had a little bit of an issue with the existing format in NASA RallyCross. So what we're going to do is we're going to have just one round of heat races. You might be familiar back in 2015A, a couple years ago, that we had only one round of heat races in the NASA RallyCross Challenge. So those will stay at 6 laps apiece. Joker once as well. So not much of a change. It's basically still the quarterfinals. The top 2 will transfer once again in the heat races, and the winner will get a bonus point. That will give us the remaining cars in the LCQ. The LCQ has been lengthened to 3 laps. You have to take the Joker once still to make up for the lack of a semifinal. And this is the big change. The final, still 2 Jokers. It was rumored in the drivers' meeting that it would be 1 Joker, but still 2 Jokers, but it's 10 laps now. So we're getting rid of one of the rounds, but we still have a decent amount of track time for you guys to watch and the drivers to drive. So practice finishing up, and heat number 1, we will see Ray Kingsbury, Chris Wetz, Doug DeNice, and Dylan Livengood. Kingsbury and Wetz, Livengood, and DeNice for the first heat race here in Phoenix. Green flag, off the line. Wetz will get the jump over Kingsbury. DeNice on the inside of Kingsbury, so it's an all-Ford heat race here in Phoenix. Into turn 2, realistically turn 1. Wetz ran a little bit wide. It's going to be Kingsbury trying to take the fight. Remember, still no Jokers on the first lap of the race. Wetz learned his lesson from last week. Over the jump and into this very tricky final sector. Extremely hard to get right. You notice there's the barrier there with the Joker exits. That used to not be there. And that was added a couple weeks ago after tests when drivers would come out of the Joker and slam into one another. Wetz leads for Revolution Racing at the end of the first lap in Heat 1. And DeNice and Livengood are 3rd and 4th. Remember now the top 2, like I said a couple moments ago, top 2 do transfer now. So it's going to be interesting to see as Kingsbury Jokers. So we're going to see the first unraveling of the strategy here in Phoenix. You saw at the very bottom corner of the shot there, Wetz was on the regular course, so Kingsbury exits the Joker. And it's about a 3-second delta. But I don't think Kingsbury had that big of a gap. So we'll have to see what happens here at the end of the second lap as Kingsbury leads us. DeNice and Livengood battling here for the 3rd spot. But remember, this spot's pretty irrelevant, especially now when only the top 2 transfer. As Wetz is historically known to Joker on the last lap of the race. So we'll have to see if the 23 can make anything happen, as he's got a little bit of damage on the front of that Ford Fiesta. But Wetz is known to Joker on the last lap of the race, and he's putting pressure on Ray Kingsbury. But I think Kingsbury is just going to cruise it home, because he will transfer if he holds second spot. Cross flags for Kingsbury. And you see they run the former infield road course here at Phoenix. Rounding the right, the left, onto the jump. Beautiful camera work by our ASN team. And Wetz bounced it off the jump there, but we're coming to 2 to go. He has not jokered. There is no delta. Livengood and Denice joker at the same time, and Livengood slams the wall. And Denice, involved as well, and will take the 51 out of the heat race. 2 to go for Kingsbury. But like I said, Wetz hasn't jokered yet. And there's no gap between these guys. So I think this is going to be an easy win for Wetz. We might see him joker. Now he does. So let's look at the 23's delta. And you notice there is no gap between him and Kingsbury. Kingsbury's just going to watch Wetz take the lead. And now the 23 can cruise home and get a bonus point here in Phoenix. White flag for Wetz. As marshals have tended to the 51, Livengood has climbed out of the Ford and walked back to pit lane. Remember, still medically cleared to race after the incident he had at Smart Stop Storage in Denver. His day job being a manager there. Had a horrible accident and he's still recovering. He was running okay as Denice in the background there slammed the tire barrier. That's going to spit it in the middle of the track. I don't think these guys are going to have any issue navigating that, though. It's going to be Wetz and Kingsbury transferring in Heat 1. Denice and Livengood go to the LCQ. So Mertz and Marwan Moftah on the front row in the Subarus. Then it's Jacob Kraus, longtime competitor from the 2003 days in a Volkswagen Beetle. And then we will have Matt Kingsbury in the 21 for another 6-lap race here in Phoenix. Let's see if Mertz can take the fight to Moftah and win the heat race like he did in the quarterfinal, getting ready to go. Lights out, and away we go. It's going to be off the line. The two Subarus battling to turn 1. Moftah v. Mertz. Looks like Moftah is going to hold it. Will Mertz apply pressure on the 191? Championship leader with those red numbers. Remember, you cannot joker on the first lap of the race. Kingsbury off the track nearly in the 21, and Jacob Kraus in the 42. Mertz struggling over the jump. We saw in practice right at the end of our recap there, he had a little bit of an issue. And Marwan Moftah holds the lead, but it's going to be a really fierce battle between these guys here in the heat race. Moftah leads it at the end of the first lap. He became the first Egyptian driver to win in NASA Rallycross. And I forgot to mention last week, I believe he is the 4th driver to win in their first start, as Mertz jokers on the 2nd lap of the race. So his first opportunity to get clear track, and he attempts to take care of that in the 2. As Moftah joined David Krikorian, Tanner Smith, and Elliot Porterfield as the drivers to win in their first NASA Rallycross start. Interestingly, it's 2-2 Subaru Mitsubishi. Obviously Mitsubishi not competing this season. Mertz ran a 35.270 as he jokered. Moftah 38.754. So the Grid Kings versus MRT. Remember, MRT only has one car here today, as Philip Kraus unable to participate. But Moftah, I believe, is closing on car number 2. But we'll have to see. I think it's going to be a little tricky for that delta time. Kingsbury exits the joker in the 21, and then Jacob Kraus looks like he had a little bit of an issue in the 42. Cross flags for Mertz. So very straightforward heat races so far. As what's old is new in the NASA Rallycross Challenge. Like we recapped that format a lot of the drivers a couple seasons ago, as Mertz looks like he had an issue over the jump, and into the tire barrier goes the 2. And looks like that might hinder him here in the heat race, as Moftah runs it wide. Mertz is going to take the lead back. Moftah has not jokered yet in the 191. So it's going to be interesting to see, but Mertz is not giving him any room. And into the tire barrier goes Moftah on the 191. And Mertz, we're only 2 races in, but he's incredibly frustrated in car number 2. Moftaw runs it wide in the 191. Mertz, very upset with himself in car number 2. Remember, him and Kraus have been on the podium there or thereabouts the last 30 races, and they weren't on the podium last week. And the competition level has been extremely ramped up here on iRacing, and the cars are much more difficult to drive than the previous generation. White flag for Mertz in car number 2. In the Subaru 4 MRT. Into turn 2. Moftaw still has to joker. I'm not sure the strategy here. I believe he has to joker, yes. So we'll see the strategy unravel. Over the jump goes Mertz in the 2. Will he be able to beat Moftaw? This is going to be tricky. Into the corner. Moftaw has to plot way back wide. Side by side. Are both of them contact between them? And Mertz into the tire barrier. Moftaw wins Heat 2. In a contact-filled race here in Phoenix. Mertz refired it, comes home second, so he does transfer. Kingsbury third and Kraus fourth. What a race in Phoenix. LCQ time in Phoenix. It's Kingsbury, DeNice, Livingood, and Kraus. 4 laps. The top 2 will transfer. Getting ready to go. Green flag. Off the line. Kingsbury and DeNice will drag to turn 1, but it's going to be Kingsbury leading DeNice, Livingood, and Kraus into turn 2. He runs it wide in the 21. He's going to get passed by DeNice. And remember, this Kingsbury brother did not make the final last week in Daytona, so we'll have to see what happens. Nobody jokers on the first lap of the race in this LCQ. Remember, Wetz did that last week, got disqualified. Everyone learned their lesson. Into the tires goes both Livingood and Kraus. And it looks like the 51 will not make it today in Phoenix. And I think the LCQ has been run before we even finish the first lap, as Kingsbury beat DeNice for the lead and the potential win here. Kraus in the background in the 42, the Wisconsin native, in third. And DeNice, the man from Missouri, longtime privateer in the NASA Rallycross Challenge. Kingsbury jokers on the second lap of the race. And we'll see Livingood there in the background. Looks like he's about to be lapped in the LCQ. Through the dirt. And back to the start-finish line. Crossed flags for Matt Kingsbury. His brother made it in the heat race, and he has to go through the LCQ, but I think it's going to be relatively simple for him today to get through to this final. As a couple of the cars we had last week weren't able to make it, but just because we have 8 or 9 cars doesn't mean that this is going to be not going to be a great race. The nice jokers now on lap number 3. Let's find Kingsbury. There he is. Looks like Kraus had an issue in the 42, so we'll take him out of it. Rounding the dirt. DeNice did not take the lead from Kingsbury. So we're going to have Kingsbury hold the lead with the white flag lap. As Livingood is in 7th place overall. 8th place will go to Jacob Kraus. And DeNice pushing really hard to try and get the LCQ victory. And Livingood struggling in the 51. He will not make the final today in Phoenix. DeNice runs it wide into the tires, pushing really hard. He's going to make the final regardless. But that DeNice Autosport crew going to have a little bit of work to do in a couple minutes for the final. Kingsbury wins the LCQ and transfers to his first final in NASA Rallycross. Then it's going to be DeNice in second. Third is Livingood, and fourth is Jacob Kraus here featured on the screen. Livingood 7th overall, 8th to Kraus. Quick show here in Phoenix, isn't it? So our grid for the Phoenix Grand Prix, Marwan Moftaw and Chris Wetz on the front row. Then it's Mertz and Ray Kingsbury on the second row, second place in the heat races. Then third row is Matt Kingsbury with Doug DeNice. 10 laps, 2 jokers, getting ready for round number 2 of NASA Rallycross in 2018B. Glad you can join us here on ASN. Green flag, off the line, Mofta and Wetz will battle the turn one. No, Wetz does not get the start. It's going to be Mertz with Mofta side by side with the Kingsbury brothers. Wetz gets hit by Ray and nearly turned around. Mofta battling Mertz. Looks like there was contact between them. Remember, no jokers on the first lap of the race. I'll repeat that one more time. But over the jump, points leader Mofta leads. Wetz is off the side of the jump nearly. Mertz hits the tire barrier. Around nearly was Ray Kingsbury. Skipping the tires was Matt. Action-packed first lap here in Phoenix. Denice is in fifth, ahead of Matt Kingsbury. Ray's in third. Wetz fourth. Mofta leads Mertz at the end of the first lap. Remember, now there are 10 laps in this final. And Mertz has a huge gap on Mofta to claw back. Ray Kingsbury holds third. Let's see who will joker on the second lap of the race. Will Mertz try and get away from Mofta like he did in the heat race? No! Mofta shows his hand. So does Ray Kingsbury. They joker on the second lap of the race. And Mertz, over the jump, he's going to lose, it looks like, second and third, battling with Denice. But he has not jokered. He holds the spot over Denice on the second lap of the race. Mofta holds the lead. Kingsbury now in second. And the Egyptian trying to become only the second driver in the history of NASCAR RallyCross to sweep the first two races of the season. The only other time that happened was 2012A, our first two races. It was Elliott Porterfield in Cross and Long Island. Looks like Wetz had a little bit of an issue. Mertz has an issue over the jump into the wall! Goes car number 2 and take him out of it. So take the 2 out of it here in Phoenix. And it's going to be these guys battling, it looks like, for the win. And Ray Kingsbury was on the podium last week, looking fairly strong here in Phoenix today. Third is now Denice. Fourth is Matt Kingsbury. Mertz is in fifth. Sixth is Wetz, but Wetz has not jokered. Mertz, issue under braking, it looks like. Nearly ran it wide there in the 2. And Wetz famously does not joker until the last 2 laps of the race. So we'll have to see the cards that are played by Chris Wetz in the 23. But the Grid Kings, Marwan Mofta holds the lead over Ray Kingsbury. Denice is third, Mertz is fourth. Fifth is Matt Kingsbury, and Wetz back in the 6th spot. And Mofta's going to play this defensive line like he did last week. But it's a little bit different because there's not a lot of hairpins. So you really just have to be careful with how you do it. Kingsbury jokers, and Mertz missed the corner in the 2. Up to the front of the field. Kingsbury now takes the lead coming across flags. We'll put Mertz back to 6th. I don't know what's going on in car number 2, but the frustration is ramped up. Ray Kingsbury becomes the first man to lead a final this season that's not named Marwan Mofta. And normally this would be 2 laps to go, but we just took halfway, so there is a lot more racing left here in Phoenix. Mofta, I believe, has 1 more joker left. Let's see what the 191 does. He does not joker. Denice holds third. Kingsbury, Matt Kingsbury fourth. 5th Mertz, 6th Wetz. Like I said, I think Wetz, according to lap times, he's looking fairly good to potentially battle for the podium, but he hasn't jokered yet. 4 to go for Matt Kingsbury, or Ray Kingsbury, sorry, in the 25 for Last Lap Motorsports. Remember, constructor teams this season, it's Revolution, MRT, and Last Lap Motorsports. So we have 2 Ford teams and a Subaru team. No Volkswagens yet for constructor. Potentially that'll change. But over the jump goes Ray. So does Marwan Mofta. Denice holds third. Very strong effort for the privateer. Although, remember, Mofta is a privateer himself, so Denice would not win in the privateer standings. Mertz is in 5th. Wetz is in 6th. 3 to go for Ray Kingsbury. It is a very straightforward race. Everybody's spread out, but the strategy has not unraveled yet. I believe Mofta has a joker left, and Kingsbury does not. So he's got to hold this 3-second delta for as long as he can. Otherwise, he's going to lose this lead. 38.786. 38.420. 3/10 faster was Mofta over Kingsbury. Jokering is Matt Kingsbury in the 21, and it looks like he's going to take the third spot from Denice. And tentatively, the Kingsbury brothers are sandwiching Moftaw. 2 to go for Ray in the 25. Remember, I don't think Mertz has any jokers left, so the 2 out of it here in Phoenix. Let's take a look at Marwan Moftaw on the 191. Does he have a joker left? The Egyptian not jokering yet. We'll have to see. I believe he does have a joker left. Timing and scoring listed as it. And I think he's going to wait till the last lap of the race. Let's find Wetz in the 23. The nice jokers. Where is Wetz to take the fight for the podium? Back of the shot there. He is now going to battle Mertz. Kingsbury will take the white flag as the nice spins it exiting the joker. Mertz and Wetz are going to battle for 5th, but Kingsbury now takes the lead on the last lap of the race. So it's going to depend on how the strategy is going to unravel for Ray Kingsbury and Marwan Moftaw. Will Moftaw be able to take this victory away from Kingsbury? He's going to joker on the last lap of the race. Kingsbury at the very back of the shot there. Had to take to the regular course. This is going to be a battle of who's going to get the strategy right. Moftaw on 2 wheels exiting the joker. Side by side nearly was him and Kingsbury, but he's not going to do anything. Marwan Moftaw ties Elliott Porterfield as he wins in Phoenix and becomes the 2nd driver to win the first 2 races of the season. Matt Kingsbury will hold off Wetz as he exits the joker. Kingsbury 3rd, Wetz 4th, Mertz 5th, and Denice will come home in the 6th spot. Living Good 7th, 8th Kraus, and 9th was Parisi, as he did have the issues that prevented him from racing. And Marwan Moftaw ties Elliott Porterfield. It's only 2 races, yes, but this is season number 16, and it's the 2nd time in that many seasons that a driver has won the first 2 races of the season. He now holds a 9-point lead over Ray Kingsbury in the Drivers' Championship, so the Egyptian will hold the red numbers going into Sonoma next week. And interestingly, Mertz is 3rd in points, tied with Matt Kingsbury. They both have 23, but Mertz is there because he made both of the finals, as everybody else has only made 1 final. It's him, Kingsbury, and Moftaw, the only constants here in NASA Rallycross. We hope you enjoyed today's coverage here in Phoenix. A much shorter show than we're used to. We're not going too far. We're going to Northern California to the Sonoma Raceway. Interestingly, Sonoma was supposed to be one of the venues on the original schedule. We did test there, but obviously we did not race there. So 6 years in the making for Sonoma. We hope to see you there. But until then, so long, everyone.